All right. Welcome, everybody, to another expert interview. Really excited to have Aaron on with us today. I'm sure he's going to share some great content with us. So let's jump into it. Aaron, do you want to tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Aaron Ware. I'm with Ware Benefits. I do health insurance, right? Anything from individual plans, Medicare plans, on up to group employee benefits. I can do the medical, dental, vision, and a lot of the ancillaries, accident plans, disability plans, so on and so forth.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making time for us today, Aaron. Appreciate you being on. I know we've been friends and done business together for years. Let's start with trends. Can you talk to me about some trends that are happening in your industry? What are you seeing? What are some things that maybe people should be aware of?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing on the group benefits side is people can't find employees. And the ones that can find them can't keep them. I talked to a company 2 days ago. It's a small little contracting company. They have 8 employees, and they called me to look into providing employee health insurance because they're losing 3 of those employees to other companies that do provide benefits. So it's a struggle out there for a lot of companies just to keep staff, and I think that's a difficult side. And then, of course, on the individual side, that's not really something that trends so much. People see a commercial and then remember that they have to have life or health insurance, and then they see another commercial or they go to the hospital and come back. But on the group side, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of struggle out there to get people and to keep people.
I love that. I'm glad that you brought that up. I've heard that from a lot of different directions, that either on the recruiting side, it's hard to find them, and on the retention side, it's hard to keep them. So speaking about that, I mean, aren't benefits expensive? Like, isn't this something that a small business just can't afford?
No, they're really not that expensive. For the most part, they're all going to be age rated. So yeah, if you have an older population, you're going to be expected to pay a little bit more. But if you look at the cost of attracting a new employee, I read a study once a couple years ago that it's something like 14% of their annual salary. So $30,000 guy is going to be $4,000. And that was then. You're shaking your head no, like it's more money now.
Probably. That's crazy. But yeah, it's true though. It costs a lot to get them.
So if you can get your share of the employee's benefits down to about $250, then you're saving yourself a lot of time. You're not spending that much money. And on the group side, we can find really good plans and come up with some really interesting ways to save the group money, save the company money.
That's awesome. I'm glad you said that, because I think that is something people don't understand, is there are a lot of options, right? So don't just be scared by the price tag. Actually get in, talk to someone who understands the industry, and see if you could find some value for your business, your employees, and your setup.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, that's the other thing too, is when you come out of the gate asking about the price, a lot of times you get scared off. But if you sit down with somebody like myself that can develop a plan for you, my whole goal is to save you money. I'm typically paid a flat rate per member. So, if I can make you happier, then I'm going to keep you.
Perfect. When it comes to someone talking to a benefits broker, what are some things they should consider, right? I know everybody's not equal, and I know personalities, but if I'm going to go talk to a benefits broker, what are some questions I might want to ask, or things I should consider when having those conversations?
Well, I think you want to make sure that that they're contracted with as many carriers as possible. There's really not anybody out there that's contracted with everyone. You have to talk to them a little bit about their current book of business. Maybe see what industries they know the most about, and grill them a little bit about compliance. A lot of times it helps you to get 1 or 2 of the booby traps that are out there from the federal government, like the Department of Labor. Learn about those, and then when you ask the broker if he doesn't know about it or she doesn't know about it, well, they're probably not going to be able to serve you very well. And then also focus on brokers that want to put together a plan, right? Rather than just sell you medical insurance, they're maybe looking at, can we sell you a plan with a higher deductible, but add in an accident plan and cut the overall cost and get more benefits. Something like that. Somebody who's going to put some thought and some engineering into your plan. And then finally, the reality of it is personality is a huge part, right? You mean this is somebody that you're going to communicate with, and something that's really important to your business, your employees, right? Like this is how you make money. You want to make sure that that broker is somebody that you can communicate with and the employees can communicate with, and that it's a pleasant experience. You're paying this money to market your business to the employees. And you want that broker to help you do that. You want that broker to make you look good. So
I like that tip at the end, right? That's the part we don't think about, is that someone's got to enroll everybody, and that broker you choose is your partner now, right? They're your partner in getting that enrollment done and actually communicating with your employees and onboarding them. And yeah, that's a part I think is missed, right? Because we're so focused on the front end, not necessarily the back end.
Right, exactly. And a lot of times, and I hear this a lot from my groups, and it's sort of become one of my talking points is, I always say HR, your human resources department, whether you have a full department or a single person that's also your bookkeeper, your HR department is not really just a compliance department. That's sort of the busy work that they have to do to keep you compliant. What they are is they are a marketing department, and their job is exactly that. You want your employees to buy in, and HR can ruin you when it comes to that, or they can make you a star. And choosing your broker, whether it's for health insurance or maybe your retirement plans, anything like that, you want to find somebody that's on board with that, that's going to help you get those employees to buy in.
Sweet. What are some of the auxiliary benefits that people may just want to ask questions about? Just maybe a quick overview. I know there's some we've talked about that I was like, oh, I didn't know that was an option, or just what are some of those key triggers maybe people should do some research on?
Well, a lot of the plans out there, the ancillary plans or the supplement plans are really pretty cool, because one of my personal favorites is a really tiny plan. It's an accident plan. It typically costs about $20 a month to do. But when you have an accident plan, you can actually buy a cheaper medical plan with a higher deductible, because most people, even some of our older people in the workforce, they're not likely to use those services except during an accident. So, and those plans will cover you 24 hours a day, on the job, off the job, and help offset some of those deductible costs. Or I had to go to the emergency room and it was $1,000, but my accident plan paid me $600. So it really saved me a lot of money. Short-term disability is another tiny plan, if you will. It's a plan that protects your paycheck, and if an employee is living paycheck to paycheck and they get hurt or they get sick, they need to have some money coming in. So that's a great plan to do that. And there's others like critical illness, cancer plans, all kinds of stuff like that. Those are really great plans because they're cheap, but you get a lot of bang for the buck, and this is another place the broker can really help you, right? When renewal time comes around, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with someone, one of the employees, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I broke my ankle skiing. And I'm like, well, did you file a claim, right? Did you get your money back? And about half the time we have to go back a couple months and get it handled for them, but they remember it and they tell the other employees, and they have a more positive experience all the way around, right? Insurance doesn't become this expensive, negative, scary thing. It actually becomes something that helped them, which is what we're trying to do.
Perfect. So it sounds like there's a lot of options. So it's not just, hey, let's go talk health insurance. It's, hey, let's look for all these other pieces of the puzzle, right? And that gets back to, you mentioned earlier, you want a broker who's going to get creative, right? What's the best for my environment, my people? What's the best for me as a person, right? And how do we balance that out based on budget needs? At the end of the day, everyone can only afford so much, right? And at the end of the day, you should have certain stuff protected. So that's great. It's good to hear that. What else before we move to like business and general topics, anything else in the benefits healthcare world people should know, or you want them to know, or they should consider?
I really think I think it's really important that people understand that they can go find a broker. In my industry, there are very few agents or companies that charge any kind of consulting fee. I don't charge a consulting fee. If you sign up for insurance through me, the insurance company pays me. So my services are completely free to you. So there's no reason at all to not go find a broker that's not going to charge you a consulting fee and sit down with you and help you make these choices, because there's a lot of pieces that you're not going to understand, right? And I'm a big fan. I love this Ask the Expert thing because I'm a big fan of experts. You know, when it comes time for me to go do something, you know, like when I went to buy a house, I get a realtor, right? I'm not going to do a for sale by owner or anything like that. I want an expert involved. And you and I over the years have passed information like that back and forth, right? It's when I need help with something I'm stuck in for as far as consulting goes, you're the guy I go to, right? So that's the thing. You can usually find a broker for no cost to you.
That's great. I don't think that was mentioned. So thank you for mentioning that, because, you know, it is the travel agent thing, right? I don't understand why you don't use a travel agent. Travel agents don't cost you money, right? Like they do all the work and then the airline pays them. Like perfect, great, fantastic.
Yeah. And when there's a problem, you have a person to go to, right? Try calling the airline.
Yeah, try calling the internet, right? Like it's so true, right? If the only number you can find is an 800 number, which on half these insurance sites now, I mean, you can't even find that. It's like either an online chat or an email me now. Like you know, and then you're just a number, right? You're not a name. There's no relationship. And that's something I think that's worth mentioning, right? Is like when you're hiring someone, right? Especially COVID, I think showed this in a pandemic, right? You want someone that you know, like, and trust and you can work with, because you want to be able to pick up the phone and have a relationship-based conversation, not pick up the phone and be like, hey, Aaron, your customer number, what was that? 103698. Cool. And what city are you in? Like, are you kidding? That person's going to have no good advice for you.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. You know, it's always funny, right? So for security purposes, we need this information from you. You don't know who I am?
But there's no history, right? Like they have no depth to the relationship. So I love the no cost thing. And then, yeah, that brings up the relationship part, which, you know, that's something I think is completely invaluable, right? That's a part that, you know, they should advocate on your behalf. So I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk business. You know, you've had an interesting journey, right? You've done quite a few different careers in quite a few different industries. You were a producer at another house, you've broken off, and now you've got your own business, which is awesome. Congrats on that move. What's the number one tip you would give to a professional or a business owner who's just looking to either get started or take business to the next level? What's that business tip you would give them?
Show up. Right. So way back when I first started in health insurance, the week I was licensed was the week I met you. And you were given a talk at a breakfast meeting, and your talk was how to network. And I had never had to network before in my life. And you came up to me and you said, do meetings. I do 20 meetings a week. And I'm like, man, I don't know 20 people, right? Like, yeah, how many can I do with you? What I didn't understand, and what I came to understand, is that it almost doesn't matter who you meet with, right? It it's like if you weren't in my area, I would be the easiest person to get a coffee meeting with. But since you're here, I can't do that. But show up at the networking events, show up at the events that where you're going to meet people and connect with people and make those connections. I tell a lot of people, you know, I'm not necessarily the smartest or best businessman in the room, but my business has been more successful than a lot of them, especially in my industry, because I'm consistent and I show up. So, and you really can't hold the gym against me the last couple of days, but other than that.
Hey, don't worry, I wasn't there either. So, but no, I think I appreciate that feedback, and I love hearing that story, and I love telling that story, right? Just about kind of where we met and how that the growth happens. And I think the other side of your show up is, you don't judge a meeting, right? Don't judge a networking event, don't judge a meeting, don't have an agenda. Just show up. I think show up sums it up perfectly, right? You just need to be in the room, because I've gotten clients and deals and referral partners and long-term relationships out of stuff that I thought was useless. Like, you show up at a networking event and there's 3 people. Well, guess what? You're going to have more intimate conversations. I've also gone to events that have 200 people and they seem like a waste, but you get the one business card and you make a relationship. Again, just take meetings.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize that on the other side of your show up is like, look, so many people have an agenda, right? Like, I have to meet this person. I've got to accomplish this in my meeting. Like, you know what? Why don't you just sit down and listen, right? Use the ear to mouth ratio, and let's go ahead and like get to know some people and let's be there, right? And I think you've done that phenomenally, right? You're part of a networking group, right? So you're part of BNI, you're active in the community, you've got some friend circles you're plugged into. So I mean, you're intentionally putting yourself in positions to show up. And I mean, it shows, right? Your business has grown enough to the point where you had the confidence to go out and start your own brokerage. So that's great advice, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, and there's so many benefits to it. I remember going to an early networking mixer early in my career, and man, I just walked in. I'm like, I don't know a single person here. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I kind of got over myself. I was like, every single person is here because they want my card, because they want to meet me, just like I'm here because I want to meet them, right? And if you show up enough times, you get that confidence. So where you can walk into a room, I can walk into a room in the Bay Area and find somebody and meet somebody, which was not how I was before, right? So your business is going to grow, but you're going to grow personally. And you're going to find some really, really great friends and great people out there. So
I love that too, right? I think maybe it's worth talking about that friend piece for a second, and I know I give this talk a lot, and this will be part of my online classes is, hey, when we're out there networking, let's not just chase clients, right? Let's not just go out with the intention of finding the person who can write a check and be a client. Let's pay attention to all the other opportunities, whether it's channel partners, referral partners, vendors, connectors, right? So people who have power networks, you need them in your network, or friends, right? That's the part I think we miss is like, we're all humans. So if we have common interests and we have the ability to build true relationships and bonds, those are actually the relationships that are going to last the longest and be the most fruitful, right? Because that's your power list where you call when shit goes sideways, whether it's personally or professionally, that's the list you call, right? So, I think we got to pay attention to that, because you never know where one of those friendships will come from, right? Ours was born at a networking event at a church, 9-10 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's not, you don't write that down, right? That's not like, oh, here's my intention today, right? So I love that. I love hearing that. Now that you broke off and you start your own brokerage, what's been the biggest challenge as you've moved out on your own and you're doing your own thing? What's the 1 or 2 things that you're like, dang, I've had to really overcome this, or it's something that you're still fighting?
Paperwork. It really does come down to there's so many things that you don't know, especially like in my position. I was an independent broker, but my job was really to go out and build my book of business. And I had a lot of back end support. The company that I was with, I still work with them in a lot of ways on a more of a partnership level, but that also means that I have to do a bunch of the paperwork. But it's, the other day, I was talking to someone and they were talking about cybersecurity, and I never really thought about cybersecurity. But here I am running around with this laptop with like tons of HIPAA information on it. And I'm like, so I go out, and what did I do? I found an expert, a guy that just sells commercial insurance. And he's like, I'm not going to just sell you cybersecurity. I'm going to sell you this plan. And the plan that he sold me contained cybersecurity, and it was something stupid like an extra $50 a year. So, all right. So it's all of those things that you don't know. And I think that circles us back to what we were talking about a couple minutes ago, because I know who to go to. I know, comes up with cybersecurity. I need to know somebody. Oh, here's a guy that I know, a guy I know, like, and trust, right? And it was handled right then and there. So I think it's paperwork. And then on the sales side, I had a really good talk with a buddy of mine the other day who told me to stop looking at the closed business and pay attention to the funnel, right? Because there's all of this noise out there in the world, and a lot of it's negative, or a lot of it's scary, especially in my industry. I mean, there are times when I think, geez, they're just going to take the whole industry away. But if you are paying attention to building your funnel, making those connections, you're not going to have the time or energy to get into a space of fear. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then finally, you can have a great year and you can have a good month, but don't ever really have a great day. Like, don't let it take you too high, right? It was just a day, some good things happened, but then that way the next day you're not deflated if it doesn't turn out as great, right? You want to look back over a longer span of time and see the growth.
I love that. I appreciate you being vulnerable, and I've always appreciated that about you, right? Being open and honest. And, it's great to hear that. The paperwork side is very relevant, right? A lot of people who jump out, paperwork, it can just be busy work too, right? No matter what that looks like, whether a realtor is part of a big real estate team and they jump off on their own, part of what hits them is like, man, there was team and support there that maybe I didn't fully value, or maybe I understood it, but I didn't fully value what it would take to put that back together myself. How many softwares, how many subscriptions, how much other shit you have to put in place, right? So it's great to hear that. And it's been interesting, like, watching you grow, because I hear some of that from you, and it's like, oh, you know what? That is something that you just don't think about, right? Cybersecurity is interesting. That was my last call. I was talking to a commercial broker, and she was saying that. She's like, hey, cybersecurity is something we're pushing right now. We're seeing a lot of those, hacking where they lock your computer and they do this, that, and this. And, so we want protection, because at a minimum, if you have to buy a new computer, at least the insurance would pay for it and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, like, that's good information to have, right? And again, thanks for having an expert you can talk to. So I appreciate that feedback. On the sales side, totally makes sense, right? Like, that conversation sounds familiar, but right, the message there is control what you can control, right? And I think that was a great takeaway from that conversation, is like, sometimes we get so caught up in closing the deal, or, focusing on the close metrics, that we forget to just overwhelm the system with numbers. And at the end of the day, no matter what industry you're in, the numbers don't lie, right? Like, if our close rate's 20%, we know our close rate's 20%. I'd rather focusing on add more to the funnel to get more out of it than trying to make my close rate go up because magically I met the right people, right? And then to your point, highs and lows, man. I know I've been on that roller coaster recently, right? It can be, as an entrepreneur, man, riding it up and riding it down every day, that give you whiplash.
Yeah.
So, and that's good. And I think you got to have a support system there too. I think that's goes with the highs and lows, right? Is like, have a partner, someone you can call, that circle of five, right? That you can tap into and just say, hey man, I want to share some successes. That way you can celebrate the win in the moment. And then have the same people you can call when you have a shitty meeting and can go, hey man, something happened. I'd love to just vent and, get that out of your mind, get it off your chest, and then just move on to the next day. So that's great to hear. So talking just, your life journey, man, you've done some cool stuff. You've been in all sorts of industries. You've landed where you've landed. Why do you get up and do what you do every day? Well, what's driving you?
Well, it really dawned on me when I started in this industry. I started with intention. I sat down to get health insurance from a broker, and she told me how it worked. That was the broker I ended up being a producer for. She told me how the industry worked, and I said, I want to go do that. It's important, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs maybe lose sight of what they do is important. Right. So when I sit down with somebody who's maybe sick or has a chronic illness, and they're looking at all these big scary numbers and they don't understand it, and can I find my doctor and all this. They're terrified, and by the time they're done with me, most of the time they're at ease and they understand what they need to understand. They can use the product, and they also know that they have somebody there. They have a lifeline. You know, what you do is important, right? You take businesses that are maybe not necessarily struggling, but they're plateauing, right? And they need to grow, because we grow or die. And you're able to come in and you're able to make some shifts with them and expand what they do. And then those businesses go on into the community and produce more for the community. I think that virtually every entrepreneur that I know in every industry is doing important work, and sometimes they lose sight of it. But that's what I try to remember, is I'm doing important work. My clients, I'm important to my clients. I'm important to the community. Not intrinsically, because I'm not all that, but what I produce for the community is important. And I think that that's the big deal. Whether you're doing, you know, even if you're the stereotypical stay-at-home mom who started a little MLM business, what you're doing is important. It's important to your family, but it's also important to the people that you're touching and impacting. You know, maybe you have a health product and you're able to help somebody get more healthy and change their lives, or you're doing a big business like, you know, a placement service, right? An employee placement. I mean, that's huge, right? Like, you're putting people to work. So what we do is important. And so what I do is important. And that keeps me getting up. Also, I like living indoors.
Well, all right. I mean, at the end of the day, we got to make money, but I think you're right. Like, what's the why, you know, and that's a good conversation. Like, why did you start? Like, I think we can get so far down this path, you know, chasing something, which is fine, right? We have to wake up and pursue, but why did we start? Right. And I think that the further you get down the path, sometimes that can become pretty blurry. Like, well, what am I actually doing here? Why am I there? And, you know, I think that's important, right? Like, what do you get up for? And having your friends tell you too. I mean, we've had conversations like that, like, dude, what the hell am I doing? And it's good to get that feedback of like, hey, let me remind you of the impact you're actually having, and knowing that, like, hey, yeah, the dollars come, but if you just do the impact correctly and you're ethical, you know, the business will grow. I love that, man. I love hearing that. I think that's phenomenal advice.
Yeah, I've always said, since I started this business, my mantra is, you know, if you help enough people, bags of money will fall out of the sky and hit you in the head, you know. And I came from a really different industry. Without getting into the weeds too much, it was basically a commodities broker, and I didn't produce anything for anybody. I was an employee that took a little bit of money as it swam by. And so, getting back to my earlier point, because I couldn't find how it was important to other people, it certainly wasn't important to me. But my job was not to help people, you know, and I started to really despise people. And I realized after my second year in this business, I remember I sat down with a client, a particularly difficult client. They had a difficult case and a difficult personality. And I was able to get them squared away and help them out. And as he left, I was in a coffee shop because I didn't have an office. And as he left, I realized that I like people again, right? So, and that goes back to that whole thing. What you do is important. And if you feel like you're having an impact, you get the warm and fuzzy, and you have the space to like people again, because they're not cattle anymore.
Right? There's industries like that, you know, and I think there may be seasons where that makes sense, right? And I think a lot of people will have a season like that, but I think that at some point that season runs out because the fulfillment doesn't match the work or the money or a piece of it, right? The pieces don't fit together in a way that they damn sure fit together now, right? Where you're motivated to do what you do. You like waking up and going to work every day, right? But you're having an impact and you're building a future for you, for the family and the community. So love to hear that.
Right.
Awesome, man. Well, we're buttoned up right on the edge of our time. So anything else on a business, personal, professional level, any messages or anything that you would want someone to hear?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and giving your time back and sharing some knowledge and wisdom. If you guys want to get in touch with Aaron, below this video, there'll be a form. You can go ahead and click that. It'll ask for your name and email. You can shoot Aaron a message. He'll get back to you and you guys can connect. As he mentioned, willing to connect with anybody. So if you guys want to have a chat, I'm sure Aaron would love to get to know you. And my offer is always the same, right? I'll have coffee, a Zoom, or meet with anyone. So love to connect with you as well. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Devin. Appreciate it.